Military folk of Reddit, what is something you miss about your active service? I miss the regimented lifestyle. You don't have to think and worry too much and just follow a routine. I liked not having to cook, and of course, I liked playing with all the cool toys. Talking about the Lithuanian military here, not US military. Walking. Even something as mundane as walking had rules. If you're a slow motherfucker, you stay to the right so others can pass. If you stop, you get off the sidewalk so others can keep using it. I can't even go grocery shopping without feeling road rage. Too many what's walking shoulder to shoulder slow as fuck and parking their cars diagonally across aisles. Fuck you. The travel was nice. I got to see a lot of the world. Lol. I'm from St. Louis. A buddy of mine joined the Navy after high school, so he could see the world and get the hell out of Missouri. For all 4 years, he was a desk jockey in Oklahoma, maybe a 4 or 5 hour drive from St. Louis. Furthest from home he went was for boot camp, and I think he said it was somewhere in Louisiana. I don't know, I'm a civilian. I miss my tank crew. I miss off-roading in a 72-ton mechanized vehicle. I miss the bullshit conversations we had. I miss being a young man and talking about all the dumb what-if scenarios we would argue about on the tank. U.S. Army here. I miss the people. I'm an Army brat and joined as 17 for 26 seconds. Luckily I live near the base now and interact with some of my old privates that are now senior leaders. I miss how much it could suck being with people you would never bond with in the real world but still having the time of your life being tired, cold, dirty and sleep deprived. I miss jumping out of airplanes. I think everyone will agree me that you miss the camaraderie, knowing the guy next to you has your back and you got his. You don't see that much as a civilian. Everyone out for themselves. I'd give anything to go back to a weekend during airborne school partying on the weekend. The fellas. Edit. Wow, thank you to all my brothers in arms for the upvotes. Just reinforces what I said. Army, Air Force, Marine, Navy, hell even Coast Guard, we all in the same fight. Who? Wearing your resume, with all the patches, ribbons, medals, insignia, you don't have to tell anyone what you do or how long you've been doing it or how good you are at it. They can see all of that information just by looking at your uniform. I literally stopped him as cook in the Navy because he was wearing parachute insignia and asked how the hell that happened. Turns out he was a former Marine who told me, "I'd rather spend my career making pancakes than becoming a pancake." Funny guy. I didn't have to pay for rent, food or medical care, while I made $2,300 a month as basically a senior non-supervisor to often stroll around and make it look like I was working. Considering I didn't pay over $1,000 out of that paycheck for rent, food or medical that I do now, I made baller bang for a 20-something with only a high school degree. Now, fuck, employers making me actually work when I'm on the clock. And I end up bringing in a lot less in terms of what I put into my checking account at the end of the month. The free classes, getting paid while learning technical stuff and certifications that cost me nothing, and then later applying that to the job. That's the one thing I tell a lot of young service members. Take advantage of the classes and certs so once you're out your life will be easy. Majority of those high-paying jobs may be looking for someone with a BS or higher degree, but are also looking for that 2 seconds plus experience. For most vets, they already will have 4 seconds plus under their belt, which goes a long way compared to that college graduate whose only experience is in labs. I miss adjusting artillery. I still do it in my head, especially in heavy traffic. An artillery forward observer is just a guy in the woods with the radio linked to an artillery battery, or 2, or 3, depending on what's going on. Secondary explosions are explosions of explosive things that have been visited by your artillery fire. Secondaries are a rush. The foe is the one who moves that battery sheaf, 6 tubes firing as one, around on the ground. The battery itself is usually over the horizon from the target. It's like you have superpowers. You point at something and it blows up. Sticks with you. It's a high, might be addictive, But nobody is illicitly marketing artillery batteries. So much for American entrepreneurship. I feel like a junkie who has been cut off from his junk. Was fun while it lasted. Here's a taste. My first secondary. My mates and I always reveled in the suck. After shitty field exercises or whatever, we would always bond over how much it sucked or how many pineapples we copped. After time, I think I've distorted those memories and gaslit myself into thinking that all that actually was really fun, which leads me to entertain the idea of getting back in. Then I check the spicy meme pages run by people who are still wearing the green skin and realize that the suck is actually real and pretty crippling, which snaps me back to reality pretty quick. The friendships. I've had friends since, but never as close as the ones I had while in the service. Sure, my friends now say they have my back, but I don't. But while in the service, if someone said they had your back, you knew they had your back. There was no questioning it. I miss the people. I don't even like people anymore. I miss walking around the barracks on a Saturday. Everyone has their door open. You go in any room, whether you know them or not, grab a beer, and just kinda hang out and do dumb stuff together. I miss the power grid shutting off, impromptu parties in the smoke pit, and people running around the barracks naked, doing dumb stuff and getting in trouble. No one cared about politics or much of what was going on in the outside world. It was nice. I miss the feeling of returning home after a deployment the most. Seeing the faces of the ones you love and tasting the fresh air after months is almost worth the pain and suffering that makes deployments themselves so terrible. It really is true that without darkness there can be no light. I also miss working with a highly skilled, intelligent and motivated team who are all focused on completing a shared mission. After being retired and working in corporate America, I realized that will most likely never happen for me again. I miss the logical chaos. Everything was stupid, but I sort of understood why. I miss cuddling for warmth in goddamn Humvee at -10 upstate during gunnery. I miss being the dad of the barracks at 25 years old, to a bunch of 18-year-olds who never had someone cook for them before. Lastly, I missed the easy blunt honesty. You ducked up, you owned it, get smoked and learn. Done. It was very straightforward. My dad spent 17 years in the Air Force, retired in 1995. The first thing he missed was the discipline. After 17 years in the military, my dad was in a training class for a new job. He was in a classroom full of 20-somethings and hated it. He said in the military, it was easy. The students start making noise and talking amongst themselves. You just call the room to attention and suddenly you are in control again. Sometimes you didn't even have to call the room to attention. Just shouting room was enough to take control of the classroom. These instructors don't have that ability in the civilian world. Honor guard duty. It was the greatest honor for me to be able to render honors for our fallen, especially when I served as NCOI for a detail. It was also the one time I got to go TDY when I got the opportunity to train directly with the USAF Honor Guard at Bowling for 2 weeks. Out of all of my accomplishments in life, being an honor guardsman is the one of which I'm most proud, and I would gladly still do it today if I could. I hate smoking now, but walking up to my squadron HQ before roll call and having a smoke outside with the gang, pretty much everyone, lol. Catching up on weekend stories etc. Talking shit on the expeditor truck driving around the flighting. We drive the truck to the end, and watch morning sorties listening for squawks and just hang out telling jokes etc. Not an enlistee myself, but military brat reporting. I love the memories of all the places we moved. My stepfather was in active duty in the 80s and we lived in several states and towns in Germany, and Georgia and Louisiana. The funny thing is, at the time it felt really hard. We moved a lot. I went to like 5 different schools in 2nd grade and had to repeat because every time we moved the new school was at a different place in the lesson plan, so I had huge chunks of the education missing. It was also getting increasingly hard to say goodbye to my friends every few months. But now, in hindsight, I am really grateful for the experience. I got to see an awful lot for a nobody from a nowhere town. I was in Germany before the fall of the wall. There's 100 faces and names who will be forever young in my mind. I'll never see them again. Hell, I don't even know a lot of their last names, but they live in my memory. Life as an adult is so mundane and I'm stuck to a single location. It drives me nuts some days. I have the most raging case of wanderlust this side of the Rhine, and it's probably because of all the moving we did in my formative years. Like everyone, I miss the camaraderie, but one thing I miss just as much is the sense of purpose and pride I had. I was a medic in the Army Infantry during the War on Terror, and the way people look at you when you're medic with the infantry is pretty cool. You're the doc. You're the guy everyone in the platoon looks to for just about everything. If you're good at it and the guys you work with know you're good at it, there's nothing quite like being a medic in the infantry. I used to think to myself that in the Army everyone looks up to the infantry. The whole military apparatus exists solely to support the infantry, the grunts, the guys who do the fighting, and the infantry looks up to their doc. That's a hard feeling to find anywhere else. Had a commander who said about the military, "We were Army, the highs are higher and the lows are lower than in normal work." And having done normal work now for a few decades, yeah, Mike, you were so very right. As already mentioned, the camaraderie. And I miss being forced to do PT at 6 o'clock. It sucked, of course, because I was waking at 5 o'clock to shave and get dressed, etc. But afterwards you always felt great. And it's 7 o'clock and I've already done something good for myself. Plus it forced me to, usually, try to get some decent sleep. Now, I consider it but then opt for the sleep. Being around your friends all day, every day, and going through real shit together. It is the most interesting relationship I've had with anyone, ever. Imagine you and your tight group of friends, from high school or whatever, have to be put into combat situations. It's like that. It only makes you love each other more. Though, some people kept their distance by being very unlikable. I still love my buddies and will until I die. If we hadn't talked in 10 years, it would make zero difference. I have a kid named after me, and plan on naming my kid after my best friend. I didn't believe in love until I enlisted and fought in a war. Now I know love is real, and have only experienced true love in war. Band of Brothers has some really good quotes about this if you're interested. Former medical sergeant here. I miss seeing all the ridiculous stories I would get from soldiers getting injured in weird ways. Work was never ever boring, especially when one day you have a cadet dislocate both his shoulders putting on his rucksack and subsequently launching himself off a cliff. Then the next you've got someone who refused to take a shit for 2 weeks and is confused as to why they can't poop now that they're out of field. Or the guy who took a selfie with an M9 and shot himself through the leg, and sat in my aid station hiding it for 3 hours saying he had some slight ankle pain. Can't get good stories like that anymore. How easy it was. Yeah, we got fucked with a lot of times and we had a lot of standing by and mass punishment, but man, it was easy. I knew what to wear and where to be every day. I was paid routinely with future raises guaranteed. I never ever paid a medical or dental bill. I didn't have to cook, just dipped on over to the chow hall, gym, movie theater, shopping, gas. Everything I needed was 5 minutes from where I lived. Friends and colleagues were available all the time. I hated a lot of things about being in and I would never go back, but it was real easy compared to being an adult in non-military America. I miss camaraderie. Everyone was the same. It wasn't hard to make friends. Civilian life just doesn't have that. Everything is a competition and everyone keeps to themselves. It's very hard to find new friends. The military offered this insular community where everyone had a lot of shared interests, struggles, and goals. I miss that a lot. Consistency. The whole structure provided a clear understanding of where you stood. You knew you were going to get paid. Unless Congress acted and medical was covered, and there was always the ability to handle your life situations without the threat of being fired. But as every veteran will tell you, it was also the most wildly inconsistent time of my life. Moves, deployments, training, TDY, change of commands fucking up the norms, Congress acting an ass. I don't know. I'd go back tomorrow though if I could. I miss the deployments, not so much the being away from family, and I was in the Air Force so I wasn't kicking down doors or throwing grenades in caves, but I miss the purpose, the training leading up to it, the traveling, the camaraderie, and the experience of it all. The people you share your time with, you're all in the suck together. You learn to appreciate things more. You learn to love and respect the time with your family more. The culmination of all the hard work brings pride with it. And the happiness of going home is almost like Christmas morning as a kid. I miss all that. I really do. Breakfast. Uncovered fact: breakfast was hands down my favorite thing about serving. Eggs cooked to order, crispy bacon, pancaked and waffles, and usually a choice of grits/oatmeal/cream of wheat, plus cereal, milk, fresh fruit, yogurt, etc. The army made a lot of situations shitty, but breakfast when in garrison was legit. I didn't realize I missed it until years later, but the camaraderie, leaving a Veterans Day assembly at my kids' school and all these veterans, all strangers, and different services but instant camaraderie and joking about my their branch sucks, etc. Even among strangers we are friends and family. Also, the language, inner jokes that span all branches like Jody. Camaraderie is great and all, but what I miss is that my comrades literally lived in a hallway with me. If we wanted to hit the bars on Friday we didn't have to wonder where we were, or if we wanted to just hang out at night with each other we had to walk all of 10 feet to get to their rooms. Now that I'm out and own my own house it's so much worse. I don't see my friends daily since doing work from home. I have to juggle everyone's schedules to try and schedule hangouts. I have to commit to a 30-minute drive to get to the closest person's house now. I'm definitely not isolated, but when you go from being crammed into a building with your best friends to having to drive to them sucks. Not gonna lie, I don't really miss it. I miss the people I grew up with in the Air Force, but that's because we became friends. I guess I'm fortunate that I've found similar camaraderie in the work I do now. I flew helicopters in shitty situations, lost too many friends. Flying is fun, but I don't miss wondering if I was going to be next. I think we should do a post where the military talk about their job and answer questions, because thank you very much guys for your service. It's such an interesting job. I would love to enlist in the army, French army, but I am a girl. I wear glasses and I am kinda scared because I don't know much about what actually happens and what you actually do in that job. A lot. Retired last year after 20. I thought I would have a sense of freedom and relief after all that time. But after this last year, I missed the fuck out of all of it. Even though some moments and years really sucked, I would relive it again to get 10 more years. It's hard to explain. It's not something quantifiable necessarily, but I definitely miss it. I was just in the one mandatory year we have in Norway and I pretty much hated it all year, but when I discharged, I started to miss it after about a year. The thing I miss most is pretty simple: Saturday breakfast, big French baguettes and scrambled eggs. You just wash your hands, salute the portrait of the king and queen, get a tray, put what you like on there, take some with you for lunch, deliver your tray to the dishwasher personnel and be on your way. Also, I was in the best shape I ever was in my life. In addition to my short previous answer, I'd like to add that you discover the strength and endurance you never knew you had. As a rite of passage, the military works well. Your ego means very little and you learn to along and even get deeply connected with people from all walks of life, especially for me coming from a very dysfunctional background and with very little self-worth. Absolutely nothing. I was active duty for 11 years. I was denied every opportunity I asked for because of my MOS, incompetent leadership, a glorification of a dickbag culture. Zero accountability, more concern with haircuts and shaves than defense of our country. Careerism, no incentive to actually improve things. 11 years in and I can honestly say honor, courage, commitment is dead, replaced by promotion, benefits, paycheck. I'm not military, but a cousin was army for 21 years. I asked him this and he said pussy. My man, the pussy, female enlisted, whores all around the base and town. I have never pulled so many easy lays anywhere else. He told me he decided to keep count after his third year in 1 year, 35 different women, 203 times. I just can't imagine. Nothing much. I joined the army and got sent overseas during Bush's troop surge, which put me in country 14 months. Then when I came back I went to college and it was like pulling teeth to get my GI Bill. Got threatened to get kicked out of school on several occasions because payments were always late. I don't regret it, but I'm very glad it's in the past. Would definitely go Air Force or Coast Guard if I had to do it all again.